I'm Norm Jones. I'm an Elizabethan historian, and when I was a visiting senior research fellow at Jesus, I became interested in the founding of the college. I want to talk to you today about a couple of the treasures that are in the college archive, which are the charters for founding the college, the first one in 1571 and the second one in 1589. The foundation, of course, it has to be done by charter. It's a letter patent issued by the Queen, and these letter patents spell out all sorts of things. Here it is, the original 1571 charter. Um, it's it's this small size that you can't read because the original is 2 feet by 3 feet. One entire lambskin was used up in writing this thing. Highly produced in vellum, highly decorated, as is typical of these kinds of things, all done in a very nice chancery hand. But what it does is, first of all, it declares why the college is being founded. Secondly, it names the first principal, the fellows, and the scholars of the college, scholars meaning students, the first intake. The third, it spells out the reality of the real estate, where the college is founded and what it owns. And lastly, it spells out the legal rights of the college. That's sort of generic. It also does something else in this particular document, which is to say who is going to write the statutes for the college. So it names a committee to draft the statutes. So all of these things are done, but as the charter says, they're being done because Hugh Price is offered to endow the college. This is a blow up of the picture of Queen Elizabeth that's on the charter. Hugh Price had promised to endow the college with £60. Doesn't seem like a whole lot then or now, although then it was worth about £15,000. But Price is an interesting figure because he had already invested a lot of money and he was very committed to this and gathered a group of people around him who were committed to it. At the time that the foundation was created, he was fairly old by Tudor standards. He was born in 1495 in Brecon, the son of a butcher. He had gone to Oxford as a young man, and in 1526 he had received his doctorate in civil law from Oxford. Now, Price is a proud Welshman. He's the treasurer of St. David's Cathedral, and he is well connected in the Welsh community. And it would appear that he and his legal friends began to plot. They conceived of a college that would serve Welshmen, certain scholars of Wales, to be trained up in good letters. And they had acquired the site of White Hall, which apparently was a derelict hall at that point, and they'd begun remodeling it. So it's a group effort, and they're remodeling the hall, but in order to get things started, they have to get a charter from the Queen. So they go after letter patent. And many of these people, Hugh Price and David Lewis, the first principal, and others, were very well connected at the court. So this wouldn't normally be a very difficult thing to do. And if they did it, Price had promised that he would endow the college with 60 years of rent. £60 a year in rent. So he doesn't die until 1574, but in his will, we get 3 bequests to the college. He promises that he will give them 60 years in rent, or land by year, as the will says. He says he will give them 60 marks in cash, which is about 64 contemporary pounds, and he will give them all of his books, all to support the scholars of the house, if, he said, conditional, that I remain a founder of the same college. And that is where the tale begins, because something had happened between the time they plotted to found the college and Price had put up the money to found the college and the issuing of the letters patent. So if we look at the charter, it says the Jesus College was of Queen Elizabeth's foundation. But the people who built the college after the foundation knew perfectly well there was something else. Apparently on the gate, there was a sign that said, Hugh Price built this shiny palace, Jesus, or that the doctor of law would have a learned breast. So Price is the founder, and it's for law students. On the other side, there's a plaque that says that it was a monument to his native Brecon. So the people founding it see Price as the founder. Price sees himself as the founder, but of course Elizabeth then takes all the credit. Jesus College within the City and University of Oxford by Queen Elizabeth's Foundation. So what happened? Well, part of what happened was 1569, 1570. In 1569, there had been a revolt in the north called the Revolt of the Northern Earls, which had been an attempt to restore the old religion and also to put Mary Queen of Scots on the throne by marrying her to the Duke of Norfolk. And so there had been a revolt against Queen Elizabeth, against Protestantism, and it had been accompanied by a bull of excommunication issued by the Pope, who told all English people that they should not obey Queen Elizabeth on pain of going to hell. Of course, Elizabeth was not pleased. They squashed the rebellion quite violently, and they began to crack down on Catholics. So what had been a fairly tolerant regime was becoming increasingly intolerant. And what they need is a new generation of clergy who can help with this. And so Elizabeth founds the college, saying that its purpose is to work against illicit enormities and nefarious abuses, malign heresies and pestiferous impieties, defending the true worship of God, who holds the Queen's heart in his hand. She saw herself as the handmaiden of the Lord. And so these are new servants of the handmaiden of the Lord, there to fight against the evils of Catholicism. And it describes the kind of people that should be graduating from Jesus, people with piety and virtue, discipline and knowledge, who were willing to raise up the poor and afflicted. So it seems to have a theological purpose. There's no mention of law, and there is no mention of Wales. The first principal, however, was in on the plot. It's David Lewis. He's a judge of the Admiralty, a good son of Abergavenny, and he was there with 8 first fellows. And 8 of the 8 first fellows, 5 of them were Welsh civil lawyers, doctors of civil law. So with all those DCLs, all that Welshness, it was clearly their intent to found a college for the teaching of Welsh civil lawyers. And we know from the intake of the college that 2/3 of the first students to come in were Welsh. So the Welsh nature of it is very, very clear. But here we can see the naming of all these fellows and the spelling out of the legum doctorum that belongs to most of them. So Elizabeth claims it, says it's theological, but in fact, the people doing the work don't seem to have that intention. There's only one person in the founding fellows who actually has a bachelor's degree in divinity. So lawyers and Welshmen. Now, it names these fellows, all these lawyers, and it also names 8 scholars. And here, again, the charter gets odd. So not only have they hijacked the purpose of the college, they now are going to hijack the first scholars, the first 8 students. And it's a very interesting thing because they got this list from somewhere. I suspect that they got them from Sir William Cecil, who was the first principal, or the principal secretary of the Privy Council, who's a very close friend of the Noel family, who the first master of the Merchant Taylor School happened to be a Noel. And lo and behold, these scholars who are going to fight against heresies and impieties come from the Merchant Taylor School, at least 4 of them. And they are going to be good at this. 2 of them become very important bishops, including Lancelot Andrews. The problem is, although they're named as scholars of Jesus, they don't go to Jesus. They don't go to Oxford at all. The 4 of the 8 of them went to Pembroke College, Cambridge, as Watts scholars, so they were noted for their study of Greek. And they go on to be theologians. And so had the 8 scholars named actually gone to Jesus, they would have carried out the purposes that are named by the Queen. But that is not what happened. So the fellows didn't want to do theology, and the students who wanted to do theology didn't come. Worse, the committee that was supposed to draw up statutes for the college didn't get around to meeting. Now, it included very busy people, Hugh Price himself, David Lewis, and Lewis only remains principal for a year before resigning and going back to the law courts. He's especially good at pursuing pirates in Wales, and they like him on those commissions because he can speak Welsh. So The 1571 committee fails to draw up any statutes. They also very quickly run into financial problems. Part of the financial problem is simply that Price doesn't die until 1574, and so although he leaves them money, the college is founded in 71, and he leaves it in 74. By the time it works for the legal niceties of who's going to collect this money and how it's going to happen, it's practically worthless. And on the other side of it, the college was only given the power to hold land in its endowment up to the value of 100 pounds. That's a very small endowment even now. I mean, that's about 20,000 pounds in modern pounds. So it's too small. How do you found a college with poor revenue? Because they're not getting the money out of Wales that they've been promised. They can't hold enough money in their endowment. So they need a new charter. They need a charter that will give them another committee to write another set of statutes, or the first set of statutes. They need to amend the old charter in order to give them the power to collect more money and to hold it in perpetuity. One of the problems with holding money in perpetuity, holding money in dead hands, Mort Main, it had been used by the church. So the church got richer and richer, and Tudor lawyers didn't like the idea of Mort Main holdings, neither did the crown, because they couldn't get their hands on them. They never sold, they were never dissolved. So it's an uphill battle to get the right to hold property in dead hands, but that's what Jesus needed. So it needs a new charter, and it will get a new charter only in 1589. So many of the same players are still there. Obviously, Hugh Price is now dead, but William Cecil is still there. David Lewis is still there. So we're going to have another committee. This committee doesn't really work either. They just don't get down to writing the statutes, which is rather odd because most statutes in most colleges are just copied from the statutes of the other colleges. So we don't really know what's going on there, but there's something difficult happening. But the new charter does give them the right to hold up to 200 pounds of real estate in dead hands. And that's a very important thing. So from 1571 to 1589, you have this confusion. There are no statutes for the college. They can't collect the income that's been promised to the college. They can't raise enough extra money because they're not allowed a large enough endowment. It's a very confused time, though the records are not very good. But what is clear is that the first charter of Queen Elizabeth to the college was set up with something else in mind. The college wasn't ready to carry it out. The college was also not legally positioned to carry it out. And so they get a chance to reinvent themselves, be more honest with themselves in this charter of 1589. And here you can see the charter. Among other things, its picture of Queen Elizabeth is much, much better than the one in the first charter. So the founding of Jesus is shrouded in some mystery, but these two documents tell us something about the confusion, or why the confusion is there and what happens, how they try and work it out. Thank you.